Thanks.
Ethan.
Yes, Lou.
Joining the show now, he's the mayor of the great city of Danbury.
I know.
On the phone, Dean Esposito. Hey, Dean.
Hey, Dean.
Good morning, gentlemen. It's great to be here. Thank you.
It's great to talk to you. So this morning, in fact, just a couple of hours ago, the News Times published an article about the abandoned former Amphenol factory on Franklin Street, and I guess city council members are divided on what to do with the property. Can you give us do you know any insight on what's going on with that area?
Well, I think the property's up for an RFP. We're trying to sell that property. It was taken on by the city after a tax issue, and now we own it. But we're looking to sell it, and there are some concerns with the possible use of there's been some recommendations to possibly put it in a school there, and that is definitely not what we want to do. But it's been out there. It's for an RFP and a purchase. So the reality of the property, it was semi-cleaned by Amphenol in the past, but it still needs some cleanup as far as environmental cleanup. And then there are a couple of interested parties that want to purchase it, certain things.
Yeah, there were contamination issues, right? All sorts of chemicals used back there in the past, so they need to get it cleaned up extensively.
Yeah, and that's as people know, those environmental studies, the phase 1 and the phase 2 have been done on that, and we've got it out there with the knowledge that it has cleaned up a little some more, so the potential buyers know that. That
tells you how popular Danbury is there. Like any property in question, we're like, we got to put a school there because we need the space.
Yeah, that's the way it seems lately, right?
That kind of leads us into our next topic.
Yeah, it does. In fact, congratulations. So last week you announced that Danbury intends to purchase the Cardis building and property over on Apple Ridge Road to put the Danbury Career Academy there. Tell us about that.
Absolutely. That's a very exciting project, guys. It came to us pretty quickly after the negotiations fell apart over at the Sun deal. This particular piece of property, the Cardis property, came to me from the owner of the property, and we went up and looked at it. We've been ever since evaluating it. We talked about purchasing it with the owner, and last night we jumped a big hurdle. The council gave us permission to bring it to the people as a referendum for purchase, and I think it's going to be the absolute perfect scenario for us. It answers our problems right now as far as a middle school and a high school in one location, and it gives us the ability to expand for the future. That's one of the things that I was most concerned about is you just said it, Lou. The next day we'll build a brand new project, and the next day it's too small. So we have a great opportunity here to expand for the future, and it's going to be an outstanding campus for the city of Danbury, and I think it's going to be one of the best in the state.
Talking to the mayor of Danbury, Dean Esposito. Dino, is it too soon to talk about the timeline for this because it's just brand new?
Well, I got to tell you, Ethan, we've been moving full speed ahead because, as you know, we had been negotiating with the Summit in the past. That deal came about back in 2019. And, all the respect for those that were trying to move forward that project back then. There weren't a lot of options. That was post-COVID. So now a lot of these corporate buildings are up and open for options. So I think it's a little soon to say that it's a 100% done deal. We still have to have a few appraisals done on that property, and then we're going to negotiate the final purchase price from those appraisals.
Let's talk about the Summit for a second. And for those who don't recognize that name, you probably know it better as the Matrix. The city of Danbury, led by Dean Esposito, we're negotiating with the Summit ownership group on turning that property into the Danbury Career Academy, and negotiations did fall apart. There's a lot of people wondering what it is that made that deal fall apart. Did the Summit ownership group, did they overplay their hand? Are they overvaluing their situation?
Lou, I would probably say yes to that question because our local representatives that were dealing directly with us, some very fine local people that were kind of in the mix of that project, they were representing the company, and that's the sellers and the operators of that property and the owners. They were representing very well, but the reality was we got to the table, and then some demands came out, And as you know, I'm kind of new at this mayor side of the issue, so I've been really studying up on that proposal. It was just not acceptable to me to put that type of liability on the taxpayers of the city. It wasn't acceptable. So we went back and forth like any negotiation, and unfortunately, they weren't willing to move on a couple of certain things, so that's why I withdrew from that negotiation.
Can you tell us any of what were the specific demands that turned you off to that deal?
Well, under the conditions, and like I said, I was reading up on it a lot more than I had in the past. We were poised to buy 3 pods. So let's look at those pods as condominiums. And as you know, when you buy a condominium, you do not own the land your condo sits on. And there is a HOA, and you got a common charges, and a few of those things were the prices and the potential liability that we had under those conditions was just not acceptable to me, because we didn't have a definite number for, like, if something happened to the main building over the next few years, we'd have to kick in a piece of that. And I just didn't think it was the right scenario for us.
So they wanted to own the land? They wanted to treat it like a condominium situation?
Exactly. The pods, we were negotiating to buy 3 pods, which they're called. And if you know the former, and back in the day, Lou, before you were born, I think, it was the Union Carbide building. But it's a different type of design up there. It's kind of winged off, and the pods are winged off. But we were looking at 3 of those, and it was considered basically like buying like a condo. There was going to be 3 different HOAs overseeing the property. The roads are privately owned, so we'd have to pay for plowing and that type of scenario. And they were looking for us to take over the road and absorb that cost. So for the taxpayers, I just couldn't accept that at this point. So to me, it looked like it was just opening up our checkbook and just keep spending at that particular location.
And it's interesting because that property, this sort of would have solved 2 problems, killed 2 birds with 1 stone. And a property that big remaining empty or abandoned becomes a problem for the city of Danbury also.
Right.
So you would have been able to kill 2 birds with 1 stone there, but because they are overvaluing their situation, they sort of have a blessing and a curse. You were like an angel investor, really. Now,
exactly.
They have
You're absolutely right. That property had been pretty much empty, a lot of it, for a long time, and that was post-COVID. Now that the property is pretty much almost maxed out as far as the use of it, it's going to be multiple use. It's got office and commercial, and then there's going to be residential up in there too.
Yeah, they're big enough to house anything, but maybe too big to draw the kind of interest that they need.
Well, I think they've been doing very, very well, to tell you the truth, as far as filling that building. And I'm not going to say one of the reasons why negotiations fell apart, but they might have thought that, obviously they were in the driver's seat. And I have nothing but respect for those people that we were dealing with. It was a straight business negotiation that fell apart. I have no ill will. The city of Danbury is going to support what they're doing up there as far as what they'll do with those pods now, maybe go back to residential. But we've evaluated every step of the way up there, and we're not going to take our ball and walk away. We're going to support them like any other development in the city.
What percentage use would you say is filled up there of that building?
If I was to tell you right now, Lou, I think we spoke about it the other day. It's 85% full.
Wow,
So,
it's more than I thought.
Yeah.
Well, just the biggest tenant up there right now is Nuvance. They have a beautiful.
Okay.
They've moved over there. They've consolidated a lot of their offices up in that summit.
Are their prices reasonable enough to keep tenants there long term?
I think so. I mean, initially they started off with a nice, enticing price per square foot, so that they can get it filled. And they did a great marketing. Some of the local representatives were really on top of it, and I give them credit because they moved forward even during this COVID issue. They've moved forward and pretty much got they're close to maxing out that location.
Dino, this was very informative. We appreciate your time as always. Anything you want to say before we let you go?
No, I just want to thank you both again for giving me the opportunity to be on the show. I love to be able to talk to you and your listeners. It's great.
Always a pleasure,
much.
Dean.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Catch you next week. Bye.
Dude, I want to move us there.
Move us where? To the summit?
The radio station.
To the summit?
Yeah.
Well, you know, I mean, building a radio station there costs money. Are you going to finance this? What's the deal?
Why are we going to be in the middle of nowhere? That's all.
So you want to move.
Yeah.
So you're not in the middle of nowhere.
That's correct. If you want to be in the action, you got to be in the action.
Hey, go down and talk to our boss right now. Talk to John. He's in his office.
All right, Johnny on the spot. I'm going to get him on that. I'm going to get all over that.
Okay, you get all over that.
Climb up at his rear end and say, yo, this is what's what.
Well, that should do it.
Yeah.
That should do it. No problem at all.